Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into a really fascinating area. It's where artificial intelligence meets, well, the super high-stakes world of surgery.
Yeah, it's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
Specifically, we're looking at laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass procedures. You shared some really interesting research on this.
That's right.
And our goal today is basically to unpack this for you, pull out the key insights without getting bogged down in all the technical jargon.
Absolutely. The main source we're digging into is a research paper. It's titled Feature Mixing Approach for Detecting Intraoperative Adverse Events in Laparoscopic Roux-en Gastric Bypass Surgery.
Okay.
And it really tackles some crucial challenges in making these surgeries even safer. It proposes this pretty innovative AI solution.
So we'll look at the challenges, the AI itself, and what it all means.
Exactly. What the potential is for, better patient outcomes down the line.
Right. I mean, think about it. The peace of mind, knowing that some advanced tech is constantly watching over a complex operation, ready to flag potential problems almost instantly.
Yeah, that's a dream.
And this research is tackling just that. These rare, but potentially really serious complications during surgery. So understanding how AI is being built for this, it gives you a real glimpse into the future of medical safety, doesn't it?
It really does. Shows the power of these data-driven approaches.
Okay, so the paper focuses on these things called Intraoperative Adverse Events, IAEs for short.
Yeah, IAEs.
What exactly are those in the context of this surgery?
So intraoperative adverse events, IAEs, are essentially unexpected and undesirable things that can happen during the operation itself.
Okay, like what?
For this type of gastric bypass, we're talking about things like unexpected bleeding, maybe thermal injuries from the instruments surgeons use.
Oh, right, heat damage.
Exactly. Or even mechanical injuries, accidentally damaging tissues or organs nearby.
And the research stresses that even though these are, thankfully, quite rare,
Very rare, yeah.
when they do happen, the impact can be pretty significant, right?
Precisely. Even though they're uncommon, IAEs can unfortunately lead to some serious post-op complications for patients.
Such as?
Things like infections, problems with organ function, and, in the most severe cases, it can even increase mortality risk.
Wow, okay.
And naturally, these complications also mean higher healthcare costs, longer hospital stays, more treatments needed. It adds up.
So, if they're rare but serious, how are they currently monitored? And what are the limitations? This sounds like where the AI comes in.
That's exactly it. Right now, it really relies on the surgical team's skill, their experience, their vigilance during the procedure.
Just watching carefully.
Yeah, but the paper points out, and it makes sense, that this kind of manual monitoring isn't foolproof. Surgeons are concentrating hard on the main tasks.
Right, doing the actual surgery.
Exactly. And it can be a real challenge to simultaneously catch every single subtle sign of a potential problem brewing.
I can imagine.
So this is where the idea of an automated system, something that can provide real-time alerts, becomes really attractive.
Which brings us neatly to BetaMixer. That's the AI solution in this paper.
That's the one. BetaMixer.
Sounds pretty advanced. Give us the overview. What is it and what's new about it?
Okay, so BetaMixer is a deep learning model. It's designed specifically to do two main things. First, classify what type of adverse event might be happening.
Like bleeding versus thermal injury.
All right. And second, to estimate how severe that event is.
Okay, the severity part sounds interesting.
It is. And one of the really clever things is how it handles severity. Usually you'd rate it on a fixed scale, right? Like 0 for none, 1 for mild, up to maybe 5 for very severe.
Yeah, discrete levels.
BetaMixer does something different. It takes those distinct labels 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and uses something called a beta distribution to transform them into a continuous range of values.
Whoa, okay, beta distribution. Why? Why go from discrete steps to a continuous scale? What's the advantage there?
That's a really key point. One of the biggest problems when you're training AI on this stuff is that the really severe events, the 4s and 5s.
They're very rare.
Exactly. You just don't have many examples in your training data. So by using this beta distribution to represent severity more like a spectrum or a dial.
Ah, like a dimmer switch instead of just off, low, high?
That's a great analogy. Yeah. It allows the model to learn more effectively from the few severe examples it does have. It helps it grasp the subtle differences and the uncertainty rather than treating level 4 as completely separate from level 5.
Okay, that makes sense. It can see the in-betweenness.
Right. And this beta distribution has these parameters, alpha and beta. You can think of them like knobs.
Knobs on the dial.
Sort of, yeah. They let the model adjust how likely different severity scores are, helping it better understand that whole range, especially the rarer, higher-end possibilities. Plus, BetaMixer uses a special sampling technique based on this distribution to kind of boost the importance of those less common severe events when it's learning.
So it pays more attention to the critical stuff, even if it doesn't see it as often.
Got it. The paper also mentioned a generative approach. What's that about?
Ah, yes. The generative part basically helps BetaMixer build a really solid understanding of what a normal, uneventful surgery looks like in the video feed.
Learning the baseline.
Exactly. It learns to model the typical visual patterns. And once it knows what's normal, it's much easier for it to spot when something deviates from that norm.
Which could signal an IAE is happening.
Precisely.
Okay, so it learns normal to spot abnormal. And then there's a transformer network involved. Is that the bit doing the actual classifying and predicting?
That's right. So after the visual features are pulled from the video frames, this transformer network takes over. Transformers are really good at understanding sequences, like the order of events.
Which is obviously important in a surgery. Crucial. So the transformer in BetaMixer looks at the sequence of these visual features over a short time window and figures out, okay, is this bleeding, mechanical, or thermal injury? And then based on those continuous values from the beta distribution, how severe is it likely to be?
So it's looking at a little movie clip, not just a single picture, to understand the context.
Essentially, yes. Analyzing that dynamic unfolding of events.
Now, this kind of AI needs good data. You mentioned the multi-bypass 140 data set.
Yep, that's the foundation here. Multi-bypass 140.
What is?
It's a collection of video recordings from 140 real Roux-en-Y gastric bypass surgeries.
Real Operation SoCo.
And what makes it super valuable is that an experienced surgeon went through and carefully annotated these videos.
Meaning they marked exactly when and where things happened.
Exactly. They noted any IAEs, what type they were, and crucially assigned that severity score from 0 to 5.
So real-world data, expert labeled. That sounds solid. How much data are we talking about? Is it massive?
It's pretty large in terms of frames. About 782,000 individual video frames were extracted.
Wow. But here's the kicker, really highlighting that rarity issue.
Mm-hmm.
Only a tiny fraction of those frames, around 1,594, are actually labeled as showing an IAE.
Less than 0.2%.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority is just normal surgery, which again shows why that data imbalance is such a challenge and why BetaMixer's approach is needed.
Really puts it in perspective. Finding a needle in a haystack, almost. Did the paper identify specific parts of the surgery where these IAEs were more common in the data set?
It did, yes. Which is really interesting practical information.
Hotspots.
Kind of. They found phases like creating the gastric pouch, doing the gastrojejunal anastomosis that's connecting the stomach pouch to the intestine,
Right.
and also dissecting around the lesser curvature of the stomach. These phases showed up with IAEs more often.
And specific steps within those phases, too.
Yep, things like, again, that lesser curvature dissection, closing certain defects or openings that are created during the procedure. These specific actions were linked to a higher frequency of IAEs in this data set. That seems incredibly useful, right? Knowing where to be extra vigilant, both for surgeons and maybe for an AI monitor.
Absolutely. It helps focus attention, potentially. And importantly, this multi-bypass 140 dataset is publicly available.
Oh, that is significant.
It's huge for the research community. It means other teams can test their own models on it, try to replicate or improve on these results, maybe find other patterns.
Fosters more research, accelerates progress.
Definitely. It's a great resource.
Okay, let's circle back to that beta distribution idea, turning discrete levels into a continuous spectrum. You mentioned handling rarity, but are there other reasons why this is a good approach?
Yeah, there are. Think about a surgeon actually assessing, say, bleeding severity during an operation. Is it definitely a level 2 or definitely a level 3?
It might be borderline subjective, maybe?
Exactly. There's often some uncertainty, some nuance. It's not always black and white. Using the beta distribution allows the AI to better capture that fuzziness, that inherent uncertainty.
So it reflects the real-world judgment call better.
Potentially, yes. It models a range of possibilities for the score. rather than forcing it into one specific box. Remember those alpha and beta parameters?
Good knobs.
Right, they let the distribution take different shapes, essentially modeling different levels of certainty or different likely ranges for the severity. It's just a more flexible, possibly more realistic way to represent what's happening.
More nuanced. I like that. Okay, so let's touch briefly on the architecture again. You mentioned several parts. Backbone, generator, discriminator, transformer, classifiers, regressors. Can you walk us through how they link up, high level?
Sure. So first, the video frames go into the backbone. Think of it as the eyes that extracts the important visual features.
What things look like.
Right. Then the generator takes these features and tries to map them onto a standard sort of normal mathematical distribution. The discriminator acts like a quality check.
Making sure the generator's doing a good job of normalizing.
Exactly. It tries to tell the difference between the generator's output and truly normal data, pushing the generator to get better. This creates a stable base. Then the transformer looks at the sequence of these normalized features over time, learning the temporal patterns.
How things change frame to frame.
Yes. And finally, based on what the transformer sees in that sequence, the classifiers decide if an IAE is present and what type, and the regressors estimate how severe it is, using that continuous scale from the beta distribution.
It sounds like a well-oiled machine, each part playing a specific role.
Mm.
So the million-dollar question, how well did it actually work? The paper gives performance metrics, right?
It does, and the results look quite promising on this multi-bypass 140 dataset.
Give us the highlights.
Okay, so one key metric is the weighted F1 score. It hit 0.76.
Which is good. What does F1 tell us?
F1 score is a balanced measure. It considers both how many actual IAEs the model found, that's what you call, and how many of the things it flagged as IAEs were actually IAEs, that's precision. So 0.76 is pretty solid.
Okay. And recall specifically, how good was it at catching most events?
The recall was 0.81, so it successfully identified about 81% of the actual IAEs present in the data.
That sounds pretty good, catching 4 out of 5. What about predicting the severe ones?
Right. For severe events, severity 3 or higher, they looked at positive predictive value, PPV. It was 0.73.
Meaning if BetaMixer said this is severe, it was right about 73% of the time.
Correct, which is quite promising for potential clinical use. You'd want high confidence when it flags something serious.
Definitely. And for the non-severe ones?
For non-severe events, the negative predictive value NTV was 0.84, so it was also quite accurate in identifying when something wasn't severe.
So overall, it sounds like it's pretty reliable at finding IAEs, catches most of them, and is reasonably good at telling severe from non-severe. Did it do better on certain types of injuries?
Yes, the paper notes it performed particularly well detecting bleeding and mechanical injuries.
Okay.
It did find predicting the very high severity thermal injuries a bit more challenging.
Ah, back to the rarity problem.
The researchers think so, yeah. Likely due to having very few examples of those extreme thermal cases in the training set.
Yeah.
It's an area where maybe more data or refined techniques could help further.
Makes sense. You need to see it to learn it well. The paper also mentioned something called classification delay time, CDT.
Yes, CDT. That's a crucial metric for real-time application.
How fast it spots the problem.
Exactly. It measures the time delay between when an IAE actually starts and when the AI correctly identifies it. You want that delay to be minimal, obviously.
For a quick alert to the surgeon.
Precisely. And the results here were also encouraging. BetaMixer showed low CDTs for bleeding and mechanical injuries.
Suggesting it could provide pretty timely warnings for those.
Yeah, potentially. The CDT was a bit higher for thermal injuries, again, maybe linked to the detection challenges there, but overall it suggests potential for rapid alerting.
That speed component is vital. Okay, so let's try to bring it all together. What are the main takeaways here? What's the real value of this BetaMixer approach?
I think the big takeaway is that BetaMixer demonstrates a significant step forward compared to previous methods for automatically detecting IAEs and assessing their severity in this type of surgery.
An improvement on the state of the art.
Seems so, and several design choices seemed key. First, looking at the temporal context using sequences of frames, not just single images, they found that 5-frame window worked well.
This sequence matters.
Absolutely. Second, that idea of modeling severity continuously with the beta distribution rather than discrete levels seems really beneficial for handling the nuance and the data imbalance.
Capturing the gray areas.
Right. And finally, they did an experiment where they removed the generator component.
The part that learns normal.
Yes. And performance dropped. which underlines how important it is for the AI to have that solid baseline understanding of what an uneventful surgery looks like.
So all the pieces seem important. Okay, so recapping our deep dive.
Hmm.
We've looked at how AI, specifically this BetaMixer model, is being developed to try and boost safety in Roux-en-Y gastric bypass surgery.
Mm.
It tackles those tough challenges, rare events, assessing severity nuances. It really feels like a promising direction for using tech to help out in the OR.
I agree. And understanding this gives you, the listener, a really concrete example of AI moving beyond theory into tackling really critical needs in medicine.
Yeah, it's not just abstract algorithms anymore.
Exactly. The way it handles this complex, imbalanced data and tries for that deeper understanding really shows the sophistication and, the potential of modern AI in healthcare.
And thinking forward, this kind of research definitely leaves us with some interesting questions, doesn't it?
For sure.
Like, as these AI systems get better and more integrated, how will that change how surgical teams train and work? What are the roles?
That's a huge question. The human AI interaction in such a critical environment.
And again, that public data set, multi-bypass 140, is out there. It's a real asset for the whole field to build upon. Perhaps you, listening, might want to explore, I don't know, other uses for modeling things with continuous distributions like beta, or maybe dig into the ethics of AI decision support in medicine. Lots to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.